Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Haig, and with me today is a very special guest who is the pride of Bayonne, New Jersey, who had a great career in high school at Marist, both as a football player and and especially as a baseball player, where he led the Royal Knights to a state championship pitching on one day's rest, which we still don't know how he did that. He then went on to have a great career in Major League Baseball, where he led both leagues in saves, both the American League 1 year and the National League 1 year in saves, and is now living in Arizona, where he coaches and also works with the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's my friend Joe Borowski. Joe, how you doing today? And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
I'm doing great today, Jim. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. All right, let's turn the clock back to, I can't say 50 years yet, but let's say somewhere in that 45-year range.
It's getting close.
It's getting close. We don't want to mention that, but when you were growing up in Bayonne, how much, first of all, what was the first sport you played? Was it baseball? Did you play baseball at a young age, and were you a T-ball player?
The funny thing is Jim, I look at how the landscape of sports is now, and it's so sports specific for kids. They play sports now year round, specific sports. When I was growing up, you played whatever sport was in season at that time. And it could be anything. It could be football, basketball, baseball. It didn't matter. There's kickball. It was whatever your friends were doing down the park, and you just enjoyed doing what you were doing. And nowadays, I see the turn from that, and I think it's really, people think, oh, the more you do it, the better and more specialized you're going to be at it. And I don't agree with that. I think the more sports you play, the better you are, the better coordinated you are. I think each sport helps in other sports.
Okay. So which sport was it for you that you first started to play first? Was it baseball?
I would think so. I think that's probably the easiest one. You get an old wooden broom, and you get a tennis ball, and you just start playing, down in the basketball court or whatever, and you draw the box on the wall, and you try to strike your friends out. I just remember doing all that stuff.
Okay, but did you play Little League? Now, mind you, too, right now, currently in Bayonne, there are two different leagues. There's the Little League, and then there's the Cal Ripken League, and they have two different leagues that are like almost battling with each other for little kids to play. But what was it for you? Did you play Little League baseball?
Yeah, I played Little League baseball. I remember playing the first organized baseball that I played I think it was called Small Fries.
Okay.
And it was coach pitch. And I remember playing that, and I'll never forget the guy who ran the league. His delivery to the plate was I can't get it out of my mind. He had a very specific way he threw the ball to the hitters, and I'll tell you what, it was like BP, because he threw strikes every single time, and I just remember his wind up and how he released the ball, and still to this day I can still picture it. And I would say I was probably around 6 at the time.
Okay. And did you fall in love with baseball right away? Was that like when you were a little kid? Was that it? Like, did you picture yourself being like in the major leagues and either in Yankee Stadium or in Shea Stadium and saying to yourself, okay, I can't wait to take my hacks?
Well, early on, I don't think I fell in love with baseball, and that was my true love. I to tell you the truth, Jim, I envisioned myself, whatever sport I was playing, being a professional player in that sport. So whether I was playing basketball down the park or at the PAL, and I could just picture myself, you always said, last shot, 2 seconds left. I always pictured that. And then with football, same thing, playing down the park or playing in Pop Warner. And you just envision whatever sport you're playing. You always thought, this is what I'm going to be, and this is what will turn out. It never works that way, but, that's where you are when you're a kid.
Yeah. And so, did you play basketball too as well? I don't even remember you as a basketball player.
I played basketball, but I only played 1 year in high school, simply because it was so much. I mean, you went straight from football to basketball, then right from basketball to baseball. And after the first year, I said, I had to really think about what did I think was best for me. And even though I was pretty good at basketball, I was like, you know what? I haven't grown in a couple of years. I don't know how much taller I'm going to get. So I made the decision, you know what? I love football. And by that time, baseball was truly my passion. And I said, I'll stick with these two.
Okay. All right. So, see, now that's something I don't remember. I don't remember you as a basketball player. So that's, at all. So, see, that's it. And I've known you for a long, long time, but I don't remember you at all as a basketball player.
Yeah, I remember playing at the PAL from, I can't even tell you what age. It had to have been around 5.
Okay.
And I played all the way through first year of high school.
Wow. All right. And what was it like to grow up in Bayonne at that time, to have so many different kids around your same age and playing different sports? And did you always have like kids in the neighborhood to go and play with?
That was the great thing about growing up there, is within a block or 2 radius, you had so many kids. You can get 3-4 different teams going at the same time playing the sport because there was so many kids there. And I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. You could walk everywhere. You didn't have to wait around for Ubers or Lyfts to take you anywhere. And you rode your bike everywhere you had to be. And it was awesome. I mean, I'm glad that my childhood was located there because it was so diverse. I learned so much, and I developed friendships that I still have today.
Sure. And where was the park of choice for you? Now, I knew where you grew up, so was it 16th Street Park, or did you make
16th Street Park? Yep. 16th Street Park, because before it got redone, it was just pretty much just wide open, field, and you could just walk. I remember it had the upper part, and then you had the lower part, and it was awesome because you had I think they also had like during the summer they would run some type of like a daycare thing or camp that would go for the whole summer, and I just remember going there at like 8 a.m. and not coming home till like 4. It was just awesome, and they had field trips, they had everything. It was pretty awesome.
Okay. All right. And then when was it that you started to realize that you were getting pretty good at it and that you had a chance to excel in sports?
Well, I always thought that I was pretty good. At that time, I don't think there was any ego or anything like that. It was something that I could pick up a sport and be pretty good at it and get better at it. And I think it was probably during, I'd say, my junior year of high school where I started to see, all right, now I'm starting to get to a point where I'm becoming decidedly, better than some of the people that are here.
You didn't notice that until you were a junior in high school? Wow.
Well, I was too busy having fun with all my friends, so it wasn't like I was locked in on sports and that was my entire life, and it wasn't until then where I just started to really pay attention and do the things that I needed to in order to get to that next level. So what I'm saying is, like, my freshman and sophomore year, I was just getting acclimated to high school, enjoying the experience, and sports were a part of that. And then my junior year is probably when I started to concentrate on the things I needed to do in order to become a person who can go to that next level.
Okay. All right. But by then, though, Joe, you were already starring in both sports. I mean, you were by the time you were a sophomore in high school, you were starting varsity in both sports, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was. But I'll tell you what, and I'm kind of glad that I did, because I held my own, but I did understand after I finished each sport in my sophomore year. I was like, you know what? There is a lot more that I need to do in order to be good at this level. And at that time, there was, and I tell my kids nowadays, when you're in high school, there's a huge difference between freshmen and sophomores than there is juniors and seniors. And
right.
And it's not always how much bigger or whatever. It's just, I call it the man muscles. You start getting those man muscles when you become a junior and senior.
Right.
And it's a huge
advantage
difference to those kids. Yeah.
Well, And honestly, it's just physically maturing.
Absolutely.
It's becoming like you said, man muscles, but it's just nature plays its course. Like
Yes.
you're far more mature as say a junior in high school than you are as a freshman. A freshman, you're still a little boy.
Oh, absolutely. I remember a story my sophomore year playing football, and we were on offense. I was tight end, and I had to go and block the inside linebacker, and it was a linebacker from North Bergen, I believe.
Okay.
And he wound up playing college football. And I went to block him, and I put a good block on him. I got my shoulder low. I hit him right on the side of his hip. And I just remember falling to my knees. He didn't even move. and that was a point where I started saying, you know what? Maybe it is time you start getting yourself ready for what this is going to be, because even though you might be a bigger kid, there's some bigger and stronger kids out there.
And that's when the weight bench was put in the garage, right? And you'd be You remember who that was?
That's when I wasn't finding excuses why I wasn't going to weights for football during high school after that.
Right, because you had it right there in your garage. Do you remember who that North Bergen football player was that played at a higher level? Do you remember who that was that you ran into?
I can't remember his name. I just remember how big, being a sophomore and seeing him and thinking that I was pretty big, and then seeing him, I was like, wow, that guy he's just not big. He's ripped up.
Right. He also could have been like 23 years old too, but that's besides the point. Okay, so now, how much pressure was there for you after when you were, say, in 8th grade, for you to go to Bayonne High School, and what made you decide to go to Marist?
Well, that was the thing is, I really didn't have the choice. My brother had gone to Marist before me.
Okay.
And my parents pretty much said, that's where you're
going.
And
Dad put the foot down, right?
Yeah. I really wasn't that happy, to tell you the truth. All of my friends were going to Bayonne. I wanted to go to Bayonne.
Okay.
But to tell you the truth, I'm glad that I didn't have the decision, because I would not change my high school experience for anything in the world.
I wouldn't either. I'd trade mine for yours. That's for damn sure.
No, it was great, and the great thing about it is all my friends that did go to Bayonne, I still am friends with them. But I also got to meet so many guys from Marist, and the thing was it wasn't just kids from Bayonne. You got to meet kids from Jersey City,
right,
and all those places that also went to Marist. So it really did turn out to be a great experience.
Okay. But there was no choice though in your case, like you didn't get to sit down. What Dad said, okay, that's it.
There was
you're
no
going.
Sitting down.
Yeah,
there was no sitting down. My parents said, "You're going here," and that's that.
Okay. Did you feel right away that you fit in at Marist? And first of all, let's turn the clock back. Who was your varsity baseball coach when you played at Marist?
Tommy Baxter.
Tommy Baxter.
He got there.
Do we have to bring up that name? Okay, go ahead. But
he got there my sophomore year.
Okay.
And he was there my sophomore, junior, senior year.
Okay.
And
and how much did it help you as a baseball player to develop having somebody who not only pitched in high school, but pitched at a high level in high school, and also pitched professionally? He made it all the way to Double-A in baseball until his arm fell off.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth is, when you're that age, you think you're invincible. You think you can do anything, and he really did look out for me as far as taking care of my arm because of what happened to him.
Okay.
And I remember my sophomore year, I was catching and pitching. I didn't pitch all that much, but I still pitched, and I was catching. And my junior year is when he said, "You're not going to catch anymore. You'll just DH and pitch because it's just too much on your arm to go out there and pitch and then have to go catch. Because when you're catching, you're throwing just as many balls back to the pitcher."
Right.
And I truly do have to thank him for at least keeping an eye on what might be best for my arm and realizing, and he probably realized, this kid has a chance. I don't want to be the one to destroy his opportunity and mess up his arm, because he understands with having his arm and hurting his arm, who knows what he could have done. Right. So I do give him a lot of credit for that.
All right, and I don't know if you're aware, but do you know what his record was for Bayonne High School when he was a senior?
I heard it was something ridiculous where he pitched almost every game.
He was 16-1. He was 16-1 as a senior in high school at Bayonne High School. So,
and as you know, in New Jersey, you don't play that many games in your high school season.
No.
So that just tells you how much
they must have played about like 27 to 30 games. Now, mind you, they made it all the way to Tom's River and played in the state championship. So he maybe played 30 games. So Bayonne played 30 games. Now, mind you, too, he played for a genius in Tommy Bujnowski, but he was 16-1. I mean, that's just unheard of now on the high school level. So
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny is I remember after being drafted, going to rookie ball, and you had a chance to look up other guys' stats where they played in high school and what their stats were. And I'm looking at some of their stats, and I'm like, wow, I really don't belong here. Guys were like 15-0 with a .2 ERA in high school. And I'm like, oh, my God, what am I doing here?
Well, you definitely belong. But first of all, you played varsity football as a freshman, correct? Did you play varsity? I'm pretty sure.
I got in a few games. Yes, I did.
Okay. And who was was Jackie Moore the football coach then, or
not my freshman year? He got there my sophomore year.
Oh, okay. So, but you got to play for Jackie though, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that like? There's an absolute legend in high school football in the state of New Jersey, and especially in Hudson County. He had two stints as the head coach at Marist. And what was that like to be able to coach to play for Jackie?
All I know is that he was a very intimidating person, not in stature.
No.
But he was intimidating with his presence. Anytime you can have a coach standing out there in 30-degree weather and wearing shorts every single day, you're like, wow, this guy just feels no pain.
Right.
He has overcome any outside obstacles, and he's focused on one thing. And I always remember just practices, him walking around with that whistle and just, putting it around his finger and just twirling it, and then walking up to guys who messed up and just cracking it right on your helmet. And then you get that ding, you get that little ringing from the whistle on your helmet.
Okay, and especially back in those days, never mind, back in those days, but where Marist's practice field was, and then where you played at Vet Stadium, they had 2 seasons, winter and July 4th. I mean, it was never, I don't know if you've ever been colder in your life than you were when you played at Vets. I mean, that was
being right down on the water, it was consistently windy all the time, and it was freezing.
Right. And for Jackie to be out there with shorts, that set a tone. You said, God, this guy's nuts, and he's out there practicing and coaching with shorts on. It was
absolutely. He was like I said, he was a presence out there, and he expected perfection. And I remember practices running the same play over and over and over again until you got it right. And it's funny, you watch some programs now and you see some of those football programs and how coaches were, and you run it over and over again. That's how it pretty much was.
Right. All right. And then you had especially your junior and your senior year in high school, you had great football seasons. And talk a little bit about what that was like to play on both sides of the ball, and had a chance to, especially, like you were such a presence both as a blocker and as a pass catcher. Talk a little bit about that, being able to play both as a junior and a senior, starting both ways.
Oh, it was fantastic. And you also got to remember, I also punted and kicked. So
That's right. Yes, right. You were a very good punter. Yeah. I don't remember you as a place kicker, though, but I definitely remember you as a punter. You were a very good punter.
Yeah, I remember doing all of that. And I remember, especially on kickoffs, the funny thing, because I never went to the sideline, is I used a different cleat to kick. I used one of those flat
kicks? Yeah.
No, the flat cleat at where the toes are.
Right.
Kind of like how that Dempsey guy used to have that. He
yeah, but there was only one problem. He only had half a foot.
But that's exactly how the front of the shoe looked.
Right.
So somebody would always bring out the shoe after we would score and we were going to kick off, and I'd be in the middle of the field trying to change my cleat and put it on, and I was always late getting to the tee to kick off. I did it my entire junior and senior year, so it wasn't like I thought, how come I'm not on the sideline? I wanted to be out there all the time. I loved it. I thought something was wrong if I wasn't out there, which was never the case. But I remember this. I remember being exhausted after games. You don't realize it during the game that you're out there the entire time, but after the game, wow, I would be tired.
Okay, now. Tell everybody, which it gets lost in the shuffle because of your professional career, but you were getting letters from some major colleges to be a D1 football player, correct? And tell me, talk about getting all those scholarship letters, and you're saying, so, wow, I could be a football player.
No, absolutely. I remember it started my sophomore year, and I remember the first letter I ever got, and it wasn't one of the mass typed out letters with the stamp of the coach. It was a handwritten letter signed by the coach from Boston College.
Wow.
And I remember getting that my sophomore year, and shoot, I still have shoe boxes full of all the letters I received, and I still have them to this day.
Wow, was Tom Coughlin the football coach at BC at that time, or?
I don't think he was there at that time, but I'm not positive. I haven't looked at these things in so long. I don't even.
But you still have those letters, though, huh?
Oh yeah, I still have them.
Okay.
And it's pretty awesome. You look, and if I'm moving things around and I see them, I'll open a little bit and I'll look inside. I still haven't spent the time to look through all of them because there's way too many. But it was definitely pretty awesome to be getting that recognition and having an opportunity to go, because I remember,
were you or were you not, before your senior year in baseball, you were seriously considering going to play college football, correct?
I had signed a letter of intent to play at Navy.
At where?
And at Navy.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah,
okay. There's something else I didn't know about you. Wow, that's scary.
I had signed a letter of intent to go to Navy, and I actually remember going on a visit there before I had signed, and meeting everybody and meeting the coach. And I remember the first time I ever met the coach. He was in a meeting, and he was with the Michigan coach was just walking out, Bo Schembechler at the time.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. I remember seeing this guy on TV coaching Michigan, and I'm like, this is pretty awesome. And it was great. I remember signing, and I was all set to go to the Navy.
Okay. And then your senior year in baseball happens, and wow, that's you had the senior year to dream all senior year. So you led Marist to the state championship, and incredibly, you pitched both the semifinal game and you won the sectional final, and then the overall final. And incredibly, correct me if I'm wrong, the original date of the sectional final game was supposed to be on Wednesday, and it got rained out to Thursday. So you pitched Thursday and came back Saturday and pitched the sectional final championship game on Thursday. Came back and pitched again in the overall state final down at was that in Toms River or was that at Princeton?
It was in Princeton.
It was at Princeton. Okay, in Princeton.
But I have to correct
2 days later.
I have to correct you with one thing.
Go ahead, tell me.
It wasn't the sectional final that got rained out. It was the final. I was not pitching originally in the final.
Oh, okay.
I pitched Wednesday, and then it was scheduled for Saturday, and I was not going to pitch. Tommy told me, he said, "You're not pitching."
Okay.
Saturday got rained out.
Oh,
and we played Sunday.
Okay. So you went Wednesday, Sunday?
Yes.
All right. So then it wasn't as dramatic as it was.
No, it wasn't as drastic, because he had told me. He said on Friday at practice, he said, "You're not pitching tomorrow."
Wow.
And I was furious. I was so mad. And I remember Sometime during Friday night, it started raining, and it just rained all day Saturday.
Yep.
And we got banged, and we wound up playing on Sunday, and that's the reason why I pitched in that final game.
See, and I you know what, the legend of Borowski is that you pitched Thursday, Saturday. So, but it really wasn't that bad. You had,
I had
legitimately you had 3 days rest.
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. So this. See, but the legend has it that you pitched Thursday, Saturday. See how
that would have been impressive, because I don't know how my arm would have stayed on if I had done that one.
Yeah, well, you even admitted to me after you pitched the state championship game, you said you were gassed, that you were like there was nothing left. You were just throwing the ball up there and hopefully that they were putting it into play.
Yeah, I remember that game, and we went to 8 innings.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
we were losing 1-0 going into I want to say the top of the 7th or the top of the 6th, one of those innings, and we scratched across a run to tie it. And I remember going out there after the pitching the bottom of the 7th. It's still 1-1. And Tommy came up to me and goes, "You've got one more inning and that's it."
Wow.
And I had the opportunity at the top of the 8th. We had first and third with, I think, 1 out or no outs. And
you hit a bomb.
3-run bomb. Yeah. And went out in the bottom of the 8th and went 1, 2, 3. And
on strictly on adrenaline, you said. There was nothing left.
Absolutely. At that point, it was, I was tired in the 6th and 7th innings, but I had so much adrenaline going on that 8th inning. I probably the hardest I was throwing in the game.
And is that what every kid dreams about? Is winning a state championship at the highest level?
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is going into that season, Jim, I don't even know if that was on our radar, because we were a pretty good team, but we weren't a powerhouse team at all. And
not within Hudson County. No.
We got hot at the right time.
Yep.
We got hot right towards the end of the season going into the state playoffs. Mm-hmm. And we just caught fire, and we really never looked back, because I'm looking at all the games leading up to the state championship, and I can't even recall a game that was close in the state playoffs. We were pretty much just cruising through. I think our first game was like 9-1. Our second game was like 5-1 or whatever it was. We just pretty much went through that whole bracket to the championship game, and we were playing some of our best baseball.
Okay. All right. Now, at that point, that's when Rutgers came into the picture and was started to recruit you heavily as a baseball player. And lo and behold, you had another letter signing, and this time it was with Rutgers, correct?
Yeah, I remember Freddie Hill, and I remember playing in those games, and back then is when scouts actually used to go watch high school players.
Yep.
I remember seeing those stands absolutely packed, and I was like, I've already signed to play football, and I'm thinking, I don't know why all these people are still coming here. I'm going to play football. They all know that, and Freddie Hill, I remember, was persistent, and he just kept pursuing me. And after a while, I guess he broke me down or whatever. But I wound up signing with Rutgers, and that voided my deal with Navy.
Right.
So I was all set to go to Rutgers, and got my scholarship. I got enrolled. I was all set for my freshman year coming up right after we had won the state championship.
Okay, and then lo and behold, what happens after you win the state championship is that the Chicago White Sox draft you, and I'm going to say somewhere in the 30s. You would probably know better than me.
32nd round.
32nd round, yeah. So now, at that point, it must have been an afterthought, and at first, the contract that was probably thrown at you was, I don't know, 10 grand, something like that, and then lo and behold, our mutual friend, the beloved, God rest his soul, Ed Ford, known as the Fa, was very persistent in getting you signed. And I guess the final piece to the puzzle, which became a signing package for a lot of other players moving on down the road, is that the White Sox agreed. If you signed the contract, they agreed to pay for your college tuition, and
Yes.
was that the piece that made you sign with the White Sox?
Yes, it is. And I'll go through the story about the entire thing and how that all unfolded.
Go ahead, please, because a lot of people don't know.
I remember being drafted, and when I was drafted, the FA called me and said, I just wanted to let you know that Chicago White Sox, we drafted you, and I know you have a lot of stuff going on, and I'm not going to bother you for the next several weeks. I'm just going to let you think about what you want to do, and I'm not going to pressure you one way or the other. I'm going to let you think about it, talk to your family, see what you want to do. And I remember going into, because I was, at that point, I was in the all-state football game, played at Rutgers. So I played that, and I think I want to say that was in late June or early July.
Late June, last week of June.
Yeah. I remember playing in that. And then from there, it was getting into July 4th weekend. So all my friends had gone down Seaside Heights, and I left from Rutgers to go down to Seaside Heights to join my friends. And I remember coming back, and from there is when the FA called.
Okay.
And he started talking to me, and he kind of saw that, I still was pretty determined to go to Rutgers. And that's when, I don't know if he talked to someone or whatever, but he said, all right, Joe, this is what I want to do. I want to fly you down to Sarasota. I want you to check out the facilities, see everything, come down for a week. You come down for the first 4 days. We'll fly your parents down for the last 3 days. I said, if anything, I get a free trip to Florida. All right, cool. So we go down there, and I'll never forget this. Me and the father on the plane. I spill a soda all over my lap on the plane. So I'm flying down there. I have soda all over my pants, and we get to land, and we landed in Tampa.
And knowing him, he didn't let you get on a plane with jeans and a collared shirt. No, you had to be dressed up to get on a plane with the father.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there on a plane. I'm like, oh man, we finally land in Tampa, and I'm thinking, all right, somebody picking us up. No, me and the father go to a rent-a-car place, and he rents a Ford Mustang with a convertible roof. So he takes down the roof, and we're flying down the highway, going to drive to Sarasota with the roof off, and the father, he's got his big jaw hanging out of his cheek and everything, and we get in, we check into the hotel, and he's like, you just relax the rest of the day. I'll pick you up tomorrow at I think he said like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we'll go over the complex. So we go over the complex, and you knew who the father was if you were in Hudson County,
right?
But it was like Norm going to Cheers when he walked into the complex. Everybody, hey, fa, screaming across the complex at him. So he made his presence everywhere he went. Everybody knew the fa.
Right.
And he just said, we'll do this for the next few days. I want you to hang out. And then he said, on the 4th day, you're going to dress out, and I want you to throw a bullpen. I was like, all right, cool. So I go, put on the White Sox uniform, go out in the bullpen, and start throwing. And, now he's got the higher-ups there, and they're behind the home plate where the fence was, and they got the radar out. And he told me the story afterwards. And on the radar gun, it's, I think, all right, 85. And he's saying to himself, come on, Joe, come on. And then by halfway through it, now I'm starting to hit 90s. And he's like, oh, thank God. And after a while, I just was consistently somewhere in the 91, 92. And he said, that right there, they started talking. And the next day, they flew my parents down. And who was it? I think it was Al Goldis was in charge of my leagues at that time. And we had a meeting with him, the fa, my parents, and myself in his office, and they said, this is our offer. We're going to offer you this. And it was $27,500 cash.
Wow.
And full school tuition. And this full school tuition is what sold my mother on it.
Yep.
When they included that, because she was very adamant that she wanted college, and when they did that is when I wound up signing that day.
You signed that. You signed that day.
That day.
Wow. Okay.
Me and my parents left the meeting. We talked, and they gave me their blessing, and I remember calling the phone saying, "It's on." We went back to Al's office and signed.
And did you remain right there?
No,
or did you go back home to Bayonne and pack and get ready to go to rookie ball?
Yeah, you got to remember.
Or extended, where they go, extended spring training. Where did they send you right away?
Well, this is the thing. You got to remember at that point, this was already the beginning of August.
Oh wow! Okay, so everybody's playing.
Missed that whole, I missed that whole season. So there was only like a little over 3 weeks left in the season. So they just said, you know what? Don't worry about this. Just go back home. Be ready for next year. But I was already enrolled at Rutgers because I had signed with them.
Okay.
The letter of intent. So I had all my classes. I had my dorm. I had everything. So I told the FA, I said, listen, I'm already enrolled. Classes start in 2 weeks. I'm going to go to a year of college. White Sox said, no problem.
Okay.
Go ahead. You'll come down when you finish your second semester, and we'll bring you to extended spring.
Okay.
Because spring training will have been over by then.
Right.
So I remember getting down there in May, and it was probably 3 weeks before the draft. So that's called extended spring, from the break of spring training till the draft.
Okay.
People who don't go to, because there's no rookie ball yet.
So you finished a full year of Rutgers. You finished a full year. Oh wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. Okay.
Yeah, and so I went to extended spring, and then the draft came, and I stayed down in Sarasota at rookie ball, and I was starting at that point.
Right.
That was the first year I started, and it didn't go great.
No,
I think I was 1-5 with like a 5 something or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's not great. And then from that point, they wanted me to go.
You were only 18 years old at that time, right? You were a young. You were not like with your regular age class. You were younger, right? You graduated high school at 17, correct?
And the other thing you also have to remember, Jim, is I was removed a year from playing, because when I went to school, it's not like I can go to Rutgers and work out.
Yeah, no, you can go anywhere.
Work out on my own.
Yeah,
I had to work out on my own. So I was not in baseball shape, ready to go when I went down there.
Right.
And that's a disservice I did to myself and the White Sox.
Right.
But I wound up, they wanted me to go to, I'm trying to remember what it's winter ball, but it's instructional league. That's it.
Instructional league, right. That's really.
And I stayed down there for instructional league. And, you know, at that point, you're playing against the other baseball teams that are in that area. So I remember playing against the Orioles, the Pirates, the Braves, those teams. And I did pretty good. I pitched a lot better. And then, lo and behold, because I went to Instructs, I couldn't go back to college for that year.
No, once you were there.
So I wound up going to spring training. And a week left in spring, I get called in the office. I'm getting traded.
Oh, that's right. You got traded.
Getting traded to the Orioles. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was
for
drafted
Pete
by the
Rose
White Sox.
Jr., correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was drafted by the White Sox. Why am I getting traded? You guys don't want me. And tell you the truth, best thing that ever happened to my career.
Yeah.
Because I wound up going over to the Orioles with not even a week left before spring training was over. And I remember talking to their director of the farm system, and he said, we're going to send you to Kane County, but we've already pretty much got our roster, and I don't know how much you're going to pitch. If you don't get to pitch much, we'll bring you back to extended to get some innings.
Okay.
So I go to King County, and lo and behold.
And that was in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's in Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. Okay, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. First year it opened. So we were the first team there. And because they already had their starters, I was now in the pen.
Okay.
So first game, their starters still weren't stretched out. So the starter had reached his pitch limit after 4 innings. And I got a chance to go out there, and we were playing South Bend. And I went out there and I threw 4 scoreless innings, threw about 36 pitches, and I never looked back from that point. I think I had the most appearances, most innings on the team that year, and put up like a 2-point something, whatever it was, and just went through their system from that point on.
Wow. Okay. And
from a guy, yeah.
And you were a relief pitcher from that point on, right? There was no turning back.
From that point. Yep. From that point on.
Wow. Okay. And then from there, you did well in the Orioles organization for a while, and then how did the incredible journey that became your baseball career turn? Where did you go from the Orioles, and did you go all the way to Double?
Through their system, and got called up with the Orioles.
Oh, that's right. Okay, all right.
I got called up from Double-A with the Orioles, and I think I got like 7 innings in, and threw well, 7 innings, 1 run, and that off season I got traded to the Braves for Kent Merker.
Oh wow, for Kent Merker. Okay.
Yeah, and went to the Braves for 2 years in '96 and '97.
Yep.
And then in '97, the Braves put me on waivers at the end of, I want to say the end of August or beginning of September.
Okay.
And the Yankees claimed me.
Yeah. Well, when was it? It's spring training when they released you, and the Braves released you, and I remember our paths crossed in the Atlanta airport, and I remember you were heading home, and I said,
No.
Where I don't know how in the world we ended up crossing paths in the Atlanta airport, and I said, hey, Joe, what are you doing here? And he goes, I'm going home. I said, I didn't realize you, and you said, yeah, you got released. Where were we then when we ran into each other? Do you remember? I think it was the Atlanta airport, right?
But it wasn't spring training. It was the end of season.
Oh, it was. Okay.
It was in the beginning of September.
Okay.
And that's when I went home, and I think back then waivers were like 10 days or something like that.
Okay.
And that's when I got a call from the Yankees saying that they claimed me, and I wound up, well, I'm right here. They said, all right, come on over, and I dressed for the rest of the year with them.
And you got to pitch. And wait a minute, that's not the '98 team, right? Did you get a ring?
In '98, I did.
Yeah. Oh, so you were with the Yankees for a full season then?
Not in the big leagues.
Okay.
So '97, I finished the rest of September with them. I think I got 1 or 2 innings in.
Okay.
And then went to spring the next year, and they sent me to Columbus, AAA, and spent the year until I think August 1st.
Okay.
And that's when I got called up and spent the rest of the year with the Yankees from there.
Right.
And
you got a World Series ring.
Got a World Series ring.
Yeah. How about that?
That's awesome.
That was incredible. So now
it was an incredible experience being on that team. That team was unbelievable.
Right. What, they win 125 games?
I don't know what including the playoffs, something like that. But I'll tell you what, if you didn't win 5, 6 in a row before you lost the game, there was something going wrong.
Right.
Because it just seemed like you won every single game.
Right.
It was incredible.
Okay. All right, so now you're with the Yankees through the '98 season into '99, and then where do you go?
All right, so this is where my career takes a very, very strange turn.
Weird turn, and wild turn too, because you end up going to Mexico for a while.
Yeah.
You end up in Newark for a while. So go ahead, continue. Right.
So at the end of '98, the Yankees took me off their 40-man roster.
Okay.
And so now I was a minor league or free agent, whatever you might say. I don't know how exactly the terms go.
Right.
So the first day that you can sign players, the Cincinnati Reds call me. And they make me an unbelievable offer as far as monetary-wise on the minor league side. And I'm like, this is a no-brainer. I know some of the people in the front office. This is a good fit. I got a big invite to big league camp. Let me see what's going on. I wound up signing with the Reds.
Okay.
Go down to spring training, and I got sent down to the minor leagues probably after the first cuts.
Okay.
Jack McCain was the coach then with the Reds. I'm not a big fan of his.
All right.
And simply because he did it in the middle of the clubhouse.
He sent you down in the middle of the clubhouse? He didn't even come in, make you come into his office to tell you?
No, he was in the middle of the clubhouse talking to Barry Larkin and Deion Sanders. And one of his assistants comes over to me and says, "Joe, Jack wants to see you." So I said, "Where is he?" He goes, "He's right over there." So he's over there. He's got his foot on a stool talking to us two. And the assistant goes, "Jack, Joe's here." So he just, still talking to them, just kind of turns to me and goes, "Yeah, we're sending you down." And then goes back to talking to them.
Wow.
I'm like, what a piece of you-know-what.
Yeah.
And so I get down to minor league spring training. And our games are starting, and it's 2 weeks into games, and I still haven't pitched an inning. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm throwing BP against our own guys on a side field. So I start talking to some of my friends, because now I've played a little bit, so I know a bunch of guys who are in the minor leagues, and I'm talking to them. And I find out what they're making a month and what I'm making a month, and I'm like, I'm not going to be here, am I? Saying this to myself.
Yeah.
So sure enough, 5 days before spring is over, they release me.
5 days before teams break in camp, they release you.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So what are you going to do then?
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So I call my agent, and every single team's doing the same thing. Many teams looking to take somebody, they're looking to get rid of people.
Right.
So I wound up going home, and I have nothing to do. I mean, my agent's still trying to find places, but at this point, they're happy. Other teams are happy with who they have, and it's going to be a while before they decide on making any type of moves.
Yep. And how old are you then? About 23, 24?
So this
Maybe?
was 99. No, I'm 27 at the time.
Oh, you are 27. Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting around, and it's now May, and I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, you got nothing.
Yeah, so I called the Newark Bears. And I talked to some lady in the front office, whatever, and I say who I am, and I'd be interested in coming and playing. She's like, I don't think we're taking anybody right now, this, that, the other thing. So I'm like, I can't even sign with an independent name. So the next day I get a call, and I don't know who the GM was then. And he goes, I'm sorry, my assistant.
With the Newark Bears then?
Yeah.
It was Victor Rojas.
That's it. Yes.
Yep.
So he calls and he goes, "I'm sorry, my assistant didn't know. Of course, we want you to sign here." So I wound up going there and signing with them. And I remember another friend of mine wound up signing with them. His name was Danny Rios.
Yep.
I think it was. And I played with him with the Yankees in the minor leagues. And at the end of June, he wound up signing to go down to Mexico.
Okay. Now, mind you, who was with the Newark Bears then when you played there? Weren't the Canseco brothers both there, or just
both,
Ozzie?
Just Ozzie.
Okay.
Just Ozzie. But he was as if you were looking at Jose.
Right.
Because he had the same mannerisms,
Same looked the same exact thing.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, and then you played with Danny Cannell.
Yes.
All right, and then you also played with Bam Bam Mullins, correct? Right, who's now a rising star in Major League Baseball. He almost got the Mets. He almost got the Mets managerial job.
Yeah, it's funny. You look back and all the lives you've crossed and all the people, and it's amazing. And I'm never going to forget this. I remember before Danny went down to Mexico, he gave me the name of his guy in Mexico who gets you with teams down there.
Okay.
And I remember it was probably around July 8th, and I was having no fun. At this point, baseball, I didn't care about. I lost the love for it.
Okay.
And I didn't care if I went out there and pitched well, if I pitched bad. It didn't matter at this point. And I remember my agent set up for a Chicago Cubs scout to come watch me play. And so I told my manager, and so he got me in, but the scout didn't make it.
Okay.
He'll be there the next day. So I told him. He got me in the next day. Didn't make it. He'll be there the next day. Pitched. Didn't make it. So this is 3 days in a row now. So now confirmation he's going to be there the next day. So now I tell my manager, he goes, yeah, I'll get you in. So this is my fourth day in a row. Don't pitch very well. And Cubs tell my agent, we're not interested.
Wow.
So at this point, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to give Mexico one shot and see what happens. And
you were already married at that point, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I called the guy, and the next day he has a team for me to go down there and play. I said, you know what? Why not? I'll go down. I go down, and within a week, my love for the game came back. It was no more politics surrounding anything. There was no more this, that, or the other thing. It was you either produce or you're gone.
Okay.
And the level of play was exceedingly better than what I was doing in Newark. And I don't know, it just something clicked, and I just pitched.
Didn't something also happen with your arm, and that you learned how to throw?
No, that was later on.
Okay.
That was after.
See, I'm getting my Joe Borowski stories mixed up. Okay, continue.
Yeah. No, I wound up being in. I'll never forget this. I'm just pitching awesome down there, and I'm starting. So I'm.
And that was a hitters league too, right? The Mexican league was a hitters league.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm in Tabasco, Mexico, and my stomach's not right. I don't know if I ate something bad or whatever, but I got the sweats.
You drank the water.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the dugout while they're taking BP, and I hear Joe, and I'm like, what? Some of these English guys speak. I turn around, and it's my coach from the Orioles when I was in Able, and now he's a Latin American scout with the Orioles. So he's like, I talked to him for about an hour, and I go out and I throw 8 in the third inning, 1 hit, and just dominate.
Okay.
Next day, my agent calls and says the Cubs want to sign you for the rest of the year. Go to AAA. And I said, at this point, it was probably right towards the middle of August.
Okay, wow.
And I told my agent, I said, the only way I do that is if they guarantee a September call-up. Because I didn't want to burn bridges in Mexico in case I had to go back down there.
Yep.
And leave. Because if you do that, no team will sign you.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to guarantee September call-up, so I finished Mexico, played winter ball down in Mexico, pitched unbelievably, and Cubs called my agent and said we'd like to sign him for the next year and to AAA contract and see what happens. So wound up signing with them, and that's when that's pretty much what turned my career around, because after I got with them is when I spent the rest of my time in the big leagues, and didn't have to, after a short stint with them in AAA, didn't have to see minor league baseball anymore.
Yeah, and then you got called up, correct me if I'm wrong, September 1st, you got called up to the Cubs, and you pitched really, really well in September that year, and that's when the Cubs gave you a contract for the next year, correct?
Yeah, the Cubs. No, actually, this is the funny thing, Jim.
Go ahead.
And this is kind of misstrued sometimes. Is I was pitching in AAA for them, and I was throwing fantastic. And in the PCL, that is a hitters league, and I was out there and I was dominating. So somebody got hurt. I want to say it was Todd Van Poppel.
Okay.
And so they brought me up for a spot start, and. I don't know. I pitched like crap. I just completely was awful. And I wound up getting sent back down right after that.
Wow.
So I finished the rest of the year in AAA, and I didn't get called back up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, so I'm like, all right, this is the end of this. And this is the funny story that completely changed my career, is they have their organizational meetings, and I think they're in December. And that scout who I was talking to in Mexico, how the Cubs worked was each scout from different sections, so like a Latin American scout, Pacific Rim scout, all those different guys can invite one guy to big league camp. So, and I didn't know this story at the time. So it's his turn. He stands up and he goes, I want to invite Joe Borowski. And the entire room laughed. They were like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm going to make all of you a guarantee that he makes this team at a spring training." And they all laughed, and they said, "Why are you wasting a spot on him? We saw what he did when he came up here to pitch that one time." So I go to big league camp, first game, first batter, first pitch, home run. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So at that point, I'm not on the 40-man. I'm not on a 40-man roster. I'm just a major league, an invite to big league camp.
Okay.
I didn't pitch for a few days. Got in another game, pitched pretty well. And at this point, I'm the guy who's not scheduled to pitch in any games. I just go to all the games in case guys can't make it through their outing, or if they run into pitch limit problems, I'll get to pitch.
Okay.
I wound up pitching 21 innings that year in spring and never gave up a run except for that first batter or the first outing.
21 innings in the spring.
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I pitched almost every other day because guys just either weren't getting through their outings or reached their pitch limits.
Okay.
So we're getting to the end of spring. So now it's the day, and I haven't heard anything. I haven't been sent down. I haven't been anything. There's, I think, 3 or 4 days left.
All right.
In Arizona.
All right. And Dusty Baker's the manager of the Cubs at this time?
No, it's Don.
Don Zimmer?
No, not Don Zimmer. I'll remember his name. Okay. Don Baylor.
Oh, Don Baylor. Don Baylor. God rest his soul. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So and it's him and Larry Rothschild was the pitching coach.
Wow. Okay.
So it's now the day in camp where you have to bring your car if you drove to go to either Chicago or go to Des Moines.
Iowa City.
Des Moines, yeah. And so I get to the field to Hohokam, and I don't know where to put my car. So I just drive to the regular parking lot, players parking lot, and I go in. I talk to the clubby, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know where to put my car. Do I put on Des Moines truck or do I put on a Chicago truck?" He goes, "I'm not sure. They haven't said anything to me." So he went and talked to Larry, and Larry was talking to Don, and they still didn't know. So Don wound up telling Larry, just tell him to put his car, just to leave it where it is for now. So we were going down to play the White Sox in Tucson.
Okay.
And this is the story that's going. The front office, Andy McPhail and them, wanted Carlos Zambrano.
Okay.
Don Baylor and Larry Rothschild wanted me. So they had been arguing for a few weeks on who they're taking. So we go down to Tucson, and Zambrano's starting. He doesn't make it out of the first inning, gives up 10 runs. In the third inning, Don Baylor gets a phone call in the dugout from Andy McPhail, and he goes, "You want Borowski? Take him."
And that was it. And that's how you made the Cubs 25-man roster.
Yep.
Just then.
And never looked back.
Never looked back. That's amazing.
Put up a 2.7 full year of big leagues and never looked back.
Okay, and you became, at that time when you went to the Cubs, you were an absolute darling in Chicago. But where, Joe? Where'd you end up with your out pitch? And who helped you with that? And it was a comment. What made your pitch an out pitch is because it was so totally different. It wasn't really a split finger, but you were turning it over a little bit too. So it was like a slider and a split finger at the same time. What was
my split wasn't a true split. My split was more of like a screwball.
Oh, okay.
And that was the topper on top of the one thing that did put me where I needed to be. And I'll never forget it. It was Joe Girardi who did it.
You're kidding me.
He was a catcher at the time.
Joe Girardi is the one that taught you how to throw your pitch.
Didn't teach me how to throw it. He talked to Todd Hundley at the time, was the starting catcher, and Joe was backing him up.
Okay.
So Joe told Todd how to utilize my pitches when I pitch. So the thing that started happening was, at that time, I was pretty much fastball slider with an occasional split. But what put me over the top was I started throwing backdoor sliders. So with a lefty, instead of it coming to his feet, I was starting it off the plate away to come to the outside part.
Okay.
And when I started including that as well as pitching into their feet with the slider is when it completely changed, because I got to the point where I could throw my slider for a strike anytime I wanted to.
Right.
I could throw it in the dirt. I could throw it anywhere I wanted to at any time. And then is when we were in the bullpen, he said, I want you to start throwing your split on top of that. Because if you have something else that's going the other way, that's going to put you over the top.
Okay.
So I started throwing it and getting more confidence in it. And as soon as I started doing that, forget about it. It was a game changer.
Yeah. And you were, and then you became a media darling in Chicago because, you know, with a last name like Borowski and in a highly Polish area like Chicago, they loved you there. But then, more importantly, you moved your way up the ladder, and you became you were still a setup man your first year. You weren't a closer right away, right?
Yeah, I was a setup guy, and then we went to 2003, and Antonio Alfonseca was a closer in 2002.
Okay.
And he didn't do bad.
Right.
And we didn't re-sign. He was coming back for 2003. He hurt his groin with like 3 days left in spring in a game, and there wasn't time to make a trade to get a closer or whatever. So we just at that point it was Dusty was manager.
Okay.
So Dusty was just like, we'll go closer by committee, make it through till he's healthy. So we didn't have a save opportunity for like the first week. So I think we were at Shea, and we went to extra innings. Everybody had pitched already.
Okay.
I was the only one left down there, and we took the lead. So, Joe, you're in. Go in, 1, 2, 3. We went. And there's not another save for like 5 days.
Okay.
Same exact scenario. Everybody had been used. We get the lead. I come in, 1, 2, 3. Now, the next week, there's like 4 save opportunities in a week. And I got every one of those opportunities, converted all 4, and
never turned back. All right, that was it.
Never looked back.
Yeah.
I think I went 15 for 15 before I blew my first save.
Okay. And,
so I never looked back.
And is that the year you led the National League in saves? You had 46 saves, something like that?
No, that year I wound up with, I think, 36.
Okay.
And it was, let's see, I hurt my arm that following spring.
Oh, wow. And, okay.
2004 was pretty much a wash.
Okay.
And 2005, I came back, but I still wasn't where I needed to be. I went from throwing 94, 95 to throwing 84.
Oh.
Yeah. And came back, probably pushed myself. I wasn't totally ready. Came with the Cubs in 2005 and was just not pitching well. And they decided they were going to release me. And they called me in, Dusty and Jim Henry at the time was the GM, and they said, Joe, you just haven't come back like we thought. And I said, guys, I totally understand. I mean, I appreciate everything you did for me and all that. And they appreciated the way I took it. And Jim was like, Joe, somebody wants to trade for you or claim you, I will not stand in the way. I will not want anything from them. If you want to go, I know you're going to go back home. If you want to go work out at Hoboken, you can work out all you want. And so I left with a great relationship with them. Okay. And sure enough, Tampa Bay. 2 days later, Lou Piniella called Larry Rothschild and said, what about this Borowski kid? And Larry said he's not where he was or what he was, but I'll tell you what, give him an opportunity and he can do it for you. And I went down to Tampa and I started out my career there. I went 21 and a third scoreless innings to start.
Wow. And then
it's fantastic.
And you had a good year with Tampa Bay, and then you signed as a free agent with the Marlins, right from Tampa Bay.
Yes, yes, and signed with them.
And although the team was not good, you did incredibly well with the Marlins.
Yeah,
right?
I closed for them. Girardi was the manager first year.
Okay,
and I pitched fantastic, and
made the National League All-Star team too, right?
No, I never made it.
Oh, okay.
Not once. I was always that pitcher who was the next guy if somebody got hurt or didn't go.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, I was always the bridesmaid.
All right, but you were right there. You were right there. You did.
Yeah.
And it was with the Marlins. You led the National League in saves, correct?
Yes. And then they called my agent and said, after the off season, after the season was over, and they were like, we know we're not going to be able to afford him, so we're not going to re-sign him. And that's when I wound up signing with the Indians,
right?
And led the American League that year in saves.
So imagine that. So in the span of 3 years, you led both leagues in saves, which I don't know had ever happened before at that time. Now, closers bounce back and forth, but I think at that time, you were the first pitcher to ever lead both leagues in saves. And
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And more importantly, you got a contract from the Indians, which was, I guess, that you were doing pretty well, and now you didn't have to worry about the rest of your life. You were making a good salary, and I guess that was when you knew that you had made it totally. I mean, the fact that
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I signed a 1-year deal with an option for a next.
Okay,
and after that's when we made that run and wound up losing to the Red Sox in ALCS,
right,
when we were up 3-1.
Yeah.
And on the flight back from Boston, Mark Shapiro came up to me on the plane. He goes, Joe, great year. Suffice it to say, we'll be picking up your option for next year.
Okay.
So I didn't have to wait very long. And so picked up my option, and lo and behold, after I built my arm up to get back to, I was still, Jim, probably only 88, 89.
You never even get 90 again, huh?
I couldn't, because I had a hole in my shoulder. I had a hole in my supraspinatus. It was a full thickness tear, and it was a 35-40% tear of my supraspinatus. Which is directly correlated with your
rotator cuff,
decelerators and accelerators. So it was not humanly possible to get that speed back. Okay. But what it did, it made me become a better pitcher.
Okay.
It made me understand how to pitch. I wasn't a thrower anymore.
Right.
I was a pitcher. And it made me understand how hitters approach, how they swing, all this different stuff. And what I was able to do at 88, 89 was, in my mind, outstanding, because now I was a pitcher.
Yep.
And it's funny, I remember talking to the orthopedic surgeon for Cleveland, and he goes, Joe, I take your MRI picture of your shoulder, and I go around the country and I talk in seminars about the shoulder, and he goes, first of all, I don't know how you lift your arm. Your arm is spaghetti. I don't know how you're doing what you're doing.
Your arm is spaghetti. I love it.
He goes, it's completely unexplainable how you're able to even use your arm, let alone pitch. He goes, I always end my seminar holding your MRI up and saying, this is why we truly know nothing about the shoulder, is because this guy is a major league pitcher and he shouldn't be able to lift his arm over his head. And lo and behold, the next spring training, felt a pop in my arm, and I knew something had to happen. So I strained something in my shoulder, but I kept trying to pitch through it. So wound up screwing up my entire shoulder. And I remember getting an MRI at the end of spring, and you couldn't see an image. There was so much inflammation in my shoulder.
Wow.
The complete image was just white.
Wow.
You couldn't see, you couldn't identify anything.
Wow.
So I went and came back to Arizona to rehab, and I got it close.
Okay.
Not close, not even close to where I was, but pretty close. And went and pitched, came back to Cleveland, and didn't really pitch well. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do what I needed to do. Okay. And they wound up telling me, you know what, it's not going to work. So they wound up releasing me. And
what year was this, Joe? What year was this?
This is 08.
08, okay.
So I came back to Arizona, rehab, put in the time that I really need, and I came back to where I got back to where I was before I got hurt. Okay. That second time, and called my agent, and he had a bunch of scouts come out, watch me throw at the rehab place, and I mean, I couldn't have thrown a better bullpen. It was just spot on, hitting every spot, every pitch, and most teams were like, you know, we liked what we saw. But we can't guarantee 25-man roster or anything like that. And I think after hearing that, I went and I talked to my wife and I said, you know what? Before I got hurt, my plan was to only play one more year anyway. Okay. I said, I'm not going to go to camp and hope to make it 25. I said, my kids are older now. I said, I'm gonna step back and I have no regrets. I can look in the mirror and be happy with everything I've done. Okay.
But how old were you then? You were only about 34, right? About that time?
In 2008, I was 37.
Oh, 37. Okay. All right. So you were getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, you know what? And we both agreed. And we were like, why put yourself through this for a year that was going to be your last year anyway, when there's so many doubts and you don't know if you're going to you don't know if you're going to be there or not. And I definitely definitely wasn't going to go back to the minor leagues. So I said, you know what? I'm happy with where I'm at. For a 32nd rounder to play 20 years of professional baseball, I think I could look in the mirror and say, you know what? I have no regrets.
Right. And you're already at that time. You had your wife and you got what, 3 children, correct?
2.
Oh, you got 2. I apologize. All right, and you already made your home in Arizona too, right? So you were not moving and going any place either at that point, right?
And my kids were in school, and they were at the age where they couldn't just come with me wherever I went. Yeah. So there's so much that played into it, and just the upheaval of our family was a big factor too. And I said, for one more year, it's just not worth it. So.
All right. So I mean. And then we're going to get into it. But at that point, you were content with your career and decided, okay, that's it. I'm going to retire. And did you, at that point, have any deal at all with the Diamondbacks to be working as an announcer? And how did that all come about?
So while I was after I hurt my arm, I had to rehab it every off season in order to get it ready for the season. Right. So I was going to a rehab place here, and I didn't know it, but I met the Arizona director of Fox Sports Arizona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had met him in passing a few times, and he was there because he blew his Achilles. So I spent 2009 just not doing anything, just helping coach my son's youth baseball team. Okay. And in 2010, the guy who ran the rehab center called me and said, hey, Joe, his name's Mike Hill. I talked to Mike Mike Roth, I'm sorry. Okay. And I mentioned, because they were looking for an analyst for their pre and post. And I mentioned your name because, I mean, we talk all the time and I think you'd be great for it. So I said, yeah, I mean, tell him I'd love to talk to him. So we set up a meeting at his office and drove down there. And at this time, I knew nothing about television. So I'm just telling him what I envisioned doing as my part. And he was like, after like 30 minutes, he was like, cool, Joe, I'll let you know in the next 3 days. And I just got to talk to some people and I'll let you know what we decide. So I'm driving home and my phone rings and he said, Joe, you know what? I don't have to think about it. It's yours if you want it.
Wow.
And I was like, all right.
With not even a screen test or anything.
Nothing.
Just boom. Okay.
Nothing.
Wow.
And I wound up doing that 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then an opportunity arose. And it was with my son's high school baseball team. Okay. And the varsity coach pretty much approached me and he said, Joe, I could really use some help. If you're willing, I'd love to add you to my staff. And at that point, the Diamondbacks weren't really great for like 3 years in a row, except for that 2011 run.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know if I can do another year of this. It's just saying the same stuff over and over again. Okay. And I said, you know what? let me call Fox Sports. So I call them, and they actually had the opportunity to bring Mark Grace in, because Mark Grace, who used to be the color guy, got in trouble.
Yep.
And then they were like, we were going to have him on for, because I would always take vacation in July. So they would bring on different analysts. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we were going to bring him in July to do it. And I think we could talk to him and see if he would do it full time. So they called me back and said, yeah, he'd be willing to do it full time. I said, outstanding. And that's when I called the coach and I said, I'm here. Okay. And I've been doing that for the last 3 years.
All right. What's the name of the school?
We love it. Notre Dame Prep.
Notre Dame Prep. And it's located in what town? In Tucson?
In Scottsdale.
Oh, in Scottsdale. Arizona. Okay. And you love coaching, huh?
Absolutely love it.
Okay. And then you have both of your boys, or one of them is too old, right? He's already graduated from high school, correct?
One of them is a freshman in college, and the other one is a freshman in high school.
Wow. And the one is a freshman in college. What's his name, and where does he go to school?
His name is Blaze, Blaze, and he goes to U of A.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Got a full ride scholarship for academics, and he is pre-med in Arizona.
Wow. Okay. And he doesn't play baseball at all?
Well, he played his entire high school career, but after his sophomore year, I knew that he wasn't going to pursue it any further, because he came up to me and he said, Dad, I love it. I love to play, but it's not my passion, and I want to be a doctor, so I'm not going to play past high school.
Wow. Okay. He
goes,
and I want to be a doctor. You said, okay, no problem. Yeah, thank you.
So even though I'm devastated, how can I argue with that reasoning?
All right, and then your younger one is a freshman now, and he's plays.
A freshman now,
and he plays at the school that you coach.
Yes.
Okay, and what's his first name?
He is Ty, T-Y.
T-Y. Okay, and how good of a baseball player is he? He
has a chance to be really, really good.
Okay.
He's. You remember me in freshman year of high school? That's him.
Okay.
He's my mini me.
All right.
Well, he's not mini. But
he's not mini, though. No.
He's exactly like I was going into high school, that size. Okay. And he has a chance to be really good.
Good.
And he also played football. This is only the second time. He played 1 year of tackle when he was 11. Okay. And he was the kid when the coach, first day of practice, he's like, I know everybody wants to be the quarterback or the running back, and I know that, like, if I said, raise your hand, who wants to be the center? And he's the only kid who raised his hand. And the coach was like, all right, Ty, you're the center.
All right, there you go.
But he played football this year, absolutely loved it, wound up getting called up, played 3 JV games, and got to suit up for varsity for the playoffs. And he absolutely loves it. Beautiful. And he plays football and baseball. Loves them.
Beautiful. Okay. And then, and your wife's first name is?
Tatum. Tatum.
And she's a Bayonne girl too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Grew up in Bayonne, and after spring training for 4 straight years out here, and our oldest was at the time 1, 2, and 3. And by the time we get back from the end of the season, you couldn't go out anymore. It's freezing. You bundle them up, go out for 10 minutes, and they have to go in. We said, you know what? We both love Arizona. Why don't we just make the move? Okay. So we did it.
All right.
We just said, let's go. Right. And it's worked great. I love it out here.
Beautiful. Okay. And then, but your parents are still in Bayonne, correct?
Well, my father passed away a few years ago.
Oh, that's right. I apologize, Joe. I'm very sorry. Your dad was a great man. I remember.
Yeah, complications due to a stroke.
Yep.
And my mom still, bless her heart, she's still going strong, still working at 71. And she works at Port Authority. And I've been trying to convince her to make a move out here, but she's rooted in New Jersey, and I don't think she'd ever leave there.
Beautiful. And she still lives in Bayonne?
Still lives in Bayonne. Still lives in the same house I grew up in.
Same house you grew up in. Wow. Okay. All right. So to sum it all up, and do you work full time at the school, or no? You just coach?
No, I just coach.
All right. And do you do anything else at all, or you're pretty much retired?
I'm just freelancing. I do a lot of landscaping in front of my house, and my wife has tons of projects around the house. I'm the handyman.
Yeah, handyman. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And you certainly didn't get into firefighting like the rest of your family, right?
No, well, that was my fallback if I never made it.
Yeah, I know you said that's what you wanted to become, a fireman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If baseball didn't pan out, you were going to become a fireman. I remember you telling me. I remember you telling me that when you were a young kid, you wanted to become a fireman. So anyway, see, some things trigger, Joe, after 35 years. Some things.
Well, that's the thing is, it's funny just talking to you now. Is like all these waves of memories are floating back, and I remember things that happened here, there, where I completely forgot about them because I haven't thought about them in so long.
Right? Yeah. And the same thing. Every time I talk to you, it's always something new that it just keeps triggering in my eyes. And obviously, you and I have a relationship going back almost 40 years. So it's back to when you were the Hudson Dispatch Athlete of the Year. I'm going to say 1988.
I think it was 88 or 89.
Yeah, one of those 2 years. You were the Hudson Dispatch Athlete of the Year. I remember that. So one of the first ones. I remember we got a little grief because it was back-to-back years. Dana Hughes was 1 year and you were the next, right?
And wasn't there a big complaint about why it was me and not Bobby Hurley?
That's correct. There was. You remember, and I remember.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And I remember telling everybody that to get the Athlete of the Year award, you had to play more than one varsity sport, and Bobby Hurley only played basketball. So
I remember you telling me that.
So you got the Athlete of the Year award over Bobby Hurley. How about that?
Yep.
So, but anyway, just to sum it all up, you've had a great career in professional sports, and it all began in Bayonne. And I don't know whether or not you ever would have thought that it could have turned out as wild as it did, with all the bumps and bruises and the peaks and valleys that you enjoyed over your career.
I'll tell you what, Jim, is you always think that, would I have loved a career where I was on the same team for 20 years and played in the big leagues the entire time, had a storybook Hall of Fame career? Sure, that's everybody's dream.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't trade any of the stuff that I went through, because to tell you the truth, when all's said and done, it helped me become a better person. It helped me to understand how to deal with adversity, how to teach my kids how to deal with adversity. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It definitely made me a better person and made me appreciate things that maybe I wouldn't have. And I sit back here and I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with everything. It's definitely made me become a better person.
Well, you've been a great person and a great friend to me for a long, long time. You've never said no throughout every single bump that you went through. I still remember, like that day in Atlanta, running into you in the airport and saying, "Where are you going?" And then you were going home. And it's just wild how we've gone through a lot. And sitting at your dining room table when you put your name to that contract with the White Sox, I would have never thought that it would ever happen that way. But I remember the fa telling me, you got to come with me. I'm going to go sign Borowski. I said, okay, and that's how that all happened. So and then he's obviously he was somebody who was very, very dear to both of us. And
absolutely,
and we both owe him a lot. So
absolutely, without question.
Yeah. So, Joe, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks so very much for taking a few minutes. Best to you and your family. And this won't be the end. We will just keep in touch. And I appreciate you taking time to talk to me today.
Absolutely, Jim. I mean, it's a pleasure to talk to you anytime, and I'd love to do it whenever you feel the need to reflect on some old memories. It's always a fun time.
Beautiful. Thanks, Joe. Good talking to you.
All
you
right.
Take care of yourself.
Take care, Jim.
All right, Joe. And that was Joe Borowski, former Major League Baseball pitcher from Bayonne, who had a great career coming out of Marist High School. And I forgot to ask him about the Marist closing. That's another page in his career that's now turned. But anyway, thank you so very, very much for listening to today's Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Haig, and thanks so much to my executive producer, my great nephew, Johnny Haig, who helped me put this all together. He is the absolute best. Again, this is your host, Jim Haig. Take care, and we'll see you again next week.